Hey everybody, Tom here, and today in this video I want to teach you how to play the Underground Duchy, faction for the game Root. Now, just a heads up, this video will make little or no sense if you are not familiar with the general rules of Root, and so make sure that you understand how the basic game works. If you need help with that, I have a video in the description of this video to help you. It will just teach you the general idea of what's going on in Root. But in this video, we're going to focus on the Underground Duchy. Now, this faction is a faction that is going to be underground. That's one of their main unique features. And the other thing is that, like, thematically, essentially what's happening is you're going to try to use some of your wealth and influence to try to gain, like, political favor in order to win, essentially. So that's the idea. Now, to help us set up, let's just imagine that this is a 3-player game. So we'll go ahead and put our marker here on the board. I already have factions A and B, the Marquise and the Erie Dynasty factions on the board already. And this is going to be faction H. So that's only really important when it comes to setup. When you set up your factions, that's going to be in alphabetical order. So anybody before the letter H, they need to set up at this point. But let's just take a quick look at what pieces this faction comes with. They have 20 warriors, which look like that. They have 3 citadels and 3 markets. Those are going to be their buildings, the rectangular shapes. They're going to have 3 tokens that are called tunnels. And then they also have 9 cards that are for just this group, and also 9 crowns that are going to go with those cards if you do a good job. Now, it doesn't list it up here on the pieces. I really kind of wish that it would, but we also have a burrow token here that we're going to be using as well. And so what we'll do is we'll go through setup. Let's just notice that this is a moderate complexity faction, probably true, moderately aggressive. Its card wealth is high. They're going to be going through a bunch of cards, and they're so-so on their crafting ability. But the very first thing that we need to do for setup is just put this near the board. It really doesn't matter where this goes. You just put it somewhere, probably near wherever the player is sitting. Next up, what we're going to do is we're going to take 2 warriors and 1 tunnel. And if the Marquise faction is in play, they'll have a keep token up here in this corner. So I have that set up. And these guys are actually going to follow the similar setup position as the Erie dynasties. So over here, we have the Erie set up, but this is also where we're going to be setting up. So let's go ahead and we're going to put our people down in this corner as well. It always needs to be the opposite corner from where the keep token is for the Marquise faction. And so in this example, we're going to be here. There's just a reminder that if the Marquise faction is not in play, you get to put it in any one of the corners. But after that, what we're going to do is we're going to put 2 warriors in each of the adjacent clearings to that corner. So we're going to need 6 altogether. So let's go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Make sure that you guys know I can count. And so we're going to start over here, here, oops, sure, and here. Now we're going to flip the board over. We're going to place our buildings in their matching spots up here. We're going to place our tunnels just somewhere where we can see them and have access to them. You don't even have to put them on the board if you don't want to. We also need to take our crowns, and our crowns, you're going to probably, like with all things that I do overhead, I'm going to be laying them down. You probably would keep them up like this, but we're just going to go ahead and put our crowns in these spots like this. And take notice that I'm covering up victory points. These crowns are going to be the main way that you're going to get victory points. And then you're going to take these 9 cards and you're going to put them face up in a stack here. If you want to, you could organize them. This is just the way that they came. So 2 cards. You can see there's 2 cards in these corners, 3 and then 4. It might just be a good way to keep things organized. But we'll set those right there. And we have our hand of cards, which means that we are ready to go. So, as I mentioned, this is going to be a faction that's like huge on this underground world. And that's going to be explained right here where it says the burrow. Let's just talk about what the burrow is and how that works. Pretty much the burrow is this off-board piece that is connected anywhere that there's a tunnel. And so when it comes to movement, if there's a tunnel in a clearing, you are always welcome to take your people and go through the tunnel and into the burrow. Now, by definition of the burrow, you always rule the burrow, and nobody in the whole game can go into the burrow except for you. So, like, if we didn't rule this, a move into there would be impossible. But because we do rule the burrow, being able to move into the burrow, that's totally fair game. And so keep that in mind, that these tunnels are just connected to the burrow, and nobody else can go in the burrow but you. And you always rule it. Now, for the most part, this faction is pretty straightforward in how it handles the main actions that everybody kind of has access to. And then there are just a couple of unique things about this faction that I think make it moderate complexity, obviously. And so what we're going to do, in fact, this will probably be easier if we put the warriors somewhere else. Let's bring them down here. Let's just take a look at what this player does on any given turn. And I won't focus on this forever. Okay, there we go. All right, let's just go through a turn and talk about what this faction does and how it's unique. So we already talked about the burrow, just barely, obviously. The very first and only thing that happens on their turn during the birdsong phase is they're going to place one warrior plus one more warrior per this icon showing, and we're going to put them into the burrow. Now, those icons are going to be shown when we build citadels. So the more citadels we have during our birdsong, the more warriors we're going to be able to put out. But for now, at the beginning of the game, then we're just going to be able to put out one warrior, and they're going straight into the burrow. And that's it. Super exciting. After that, we're going to do the daylight phase, which will have 3 different steps. The first step is to just take 2 actions. Most of these actions are just the straightforward ones that we know from the game in general. One of them is going to be to build. And to build, what we would do is we would just reveal a card from our hand. And so if, let's think, where am I? Okay, so, okay, we could build right there. I could reveal a fox card, and that would allow me to build a building in a matching clearing that we rule. So I had to go for a fox card. Let's say I build this one, because I do rule this clearing over here. So now I have that citadel down. That will help me get more people into my burrow in the future. And again, notice that we're just revealing this card. We're not actually discarding it. Okay. Another action from these 2 that we could take is to move. Just like all of the factions, you need to rule either the clearing you're moving to or you're moving from, and you can move as many warriors as you want to, and you always rule the burrow. And so I could bring this guy out here into the open. Obviously, I've already done my 2 actions, but we'll continue on. You could recruit, which means you just place another warrior into the burrow. Battling is as easy as you know it to be. I like to do a quick battle example in these videos just because if you're new to the game, battling can kind of feel weird at the beginning, so it's good to review. And so let's do a quick battle. Let's do one right here. So in a battle, these 2 dice are rolled. They're numbered 0 through 3. Roll the 2 dice. The attacker takes the bigger number. The defender takes the lower number. If the number is bigger than your number of warriors, you need to adjust that number down, but they're clear and we're clear over here. And then this is how many hits we're doing to each other. They are going to deal 0 hits to us. We are going to deal 1 hit to them, which means we would remove 1 piece, always starting with warriors until there aren't any warriors. That is how we would remove the cat. All right, so that's just a quick battle review. And those are kind of like the 4 main actions that everyone has access to. Crafting will come up a little bit later. But let's talk about digging. So digging says that you could spend a card to place a tunnel in a matching clearing. So, I mean, it probably strategically would be a little silly to do this, but let's go ahead. We could spend, so we'd actually discard this card, and that would allow us to go ahead and build this into either this fox clearing or this one or this one. You don't have to rule. Again, the idea is that you're kind of tunneling underground, so whatever's happening above ground probably doesn't matter. So if I wanted to get people over here, then maybe I'd put this tunnel in that fox clearing. And then what you'd be able to do is you'd be able to move up to 4 warriors from your burrow out into that clearing over there. Now, if you didn't have any more tunnels, you only have 3, then what you would need to do is remove a tunnel from somewhere. Let's say I had all 3 on the board, then I could take a tunnel from somewhere and put it in a different spot if I choose to do this action and I don't have any more tunnels. So that's what digging does. So this, to build, you reveal a card. These other ones, you would just do them. And then to dig, you would actually spend the card And don't forget that you can move your warriors up to 4 from the burrow over to your new tunnel that you just barely dug out. All right, so that's the beginning of your daylight phases. Just take those basic actions. Next, you could take the action of each swayed minister one time. So these down here are ministers, and currently they're unswayed because they're down here like this. In fact, I'm going to move the board down. But what you're going to see is that we're going to be able to sway ministers next. And so that's going to be our third move. So we'll talk about the second one in just a second. But next, let's talk about how you can sway a minister. Now, to do this, I'm going to need more cards in my hand, so let me just grab a couple. But the idea here is that, remember I showed you a little bit earlier that each of these ministers has a number of cards shown in their corner, either 2, 3, or 4. What you need to do is you need to reveal a number of cards from your hand, and they need to match where you have pieces on the board. So, oh man, I'm kind of stunk. Here, I'm going to bring my fox card back. Okay, this is what happens when you don't pre-plan your cards. All right, so let's say that my hand looks like this for right now. All right, what we would do is I would need to look at the clearings that I have any pieces in at all. So, for example, I have a fox, I have a mouse, I have a fox, another mouse, and a rabbit. So depending on how many cards I have that match that I could reveal. So I had a fox and a rabbit and a mouse. Okay, cool. I've got 4 cards in my hand, because I cheated, that match clearings I have pieces in on the board. But what this means is I could sway any one of these that has up to 4 cards showing, because I had 4 matching cards with clearings with pieces on them. So in this extreme example, like obviously I kind of cheated with those 2. In fact, here, let's uncheat ourselves. But in the cheating way, I could have picked one of these cards with 4 in order to sway them. I would put them at the top of the board and move a crown up here like this. Okay? And then I would score 3 points. So this is going to be the main way that you score points, is by swaying your unswayed ministers. So let's go back to our not cheating example for a second. So if I were to do this action, let's say it's the next turn. Well, I don't have any fox cards in my hand now. I've got a bunch of rabbits and a mouse. Well, I could reveal a rabbit and a mouse. And that means I have 2 cards. I could grab one of these 2 card dudes and go ahead and crown him. And I would get 1 point for that. And let me put these in my revealed pile right there. So that's what's happening down here. That's how you are actually that's the main way that you're going to get these points from this part of the board. And so now let's talk about this action up here, where it says you can take the action of each swayed minister once. Once you have swayed ministers on your next turn, then you could actually do what these say. The Earl of Stone says you score 1 point per citadel that you have on the map. So if this was the next round and I got to this part, I usually would just tip the crown down like that to show I did that action. I would get 1 point because I have 1 citadel on the map. This one over here, you could spend this guy in order to take a move action. And so that's what's right here. So again, on your turn, you're going to place some warriors in your burrow, take 2 actions from this list. You could take the actions of any ministers you've already swayed, and then you could try to sway some more. And that's the general flow of your daylight phase. Oh my gosh, I am making a mess everywhere. That's cool. All right, so now let's look at the evening phase. Evening phase is going to be pretty straightforward. If we had revealed any bird cards, because those are wild, we would discard them and take all of the rest of our cards back into our hand. And then we could craft using citadels and markets. So when it comes to crafting, you would just look at the board anywhere that you had either a citadel or a market and take note of the suit. So in this example right now, we only have 1 fox building out. And so if I wanted to craft a card, I would need to have a card with a single fox thing on there. If I had a second building, let's put this one over here. All right, so if I had 2 buildings in fox places, when it came time for crafting, I would be able to craft this card. I would be able to earn the sword, put it here. The vagabonds might come use that. And I would get 2 points and then discard this card. All right, so crafting works pretty straightforward. The only weird thing about crafting here is that you have two different types of buildings, and both of them can be used to craft. And then finally, what we do is draw a card, plus one more card per this icon showing. That's what your markets are for. Your markets are going to help you draw more cards. You could see the icons right there. And if you have more than 5 cards in your hand, you would discard down to 5. And that's pretty much how this faction works. Pretty straightforward. I think moderate is a fair assessment on its complexity. Now there's one thing to be aware of, and it's right here, the price of failure. Whenever you lose buildings in a battle, so if a battle happens right here and my warrior is removed and I choose to remove this building, for example, if any buildings are removed during a battle, then what would happen is you would need to take your highest ranked noble person, what are they called again? Ministers, yeah, sorry. You would take your highest ranked minister and they would have to come back into the pile. You just lost influence over them because you're not that cool. And then your crown actually goes back into the box. You can no longer use it. You won't be able to get the points from it at all. And you would have to lose one card at random from your hand. So this would get lost. See ya. But that's it. At this point, we have covered how this faction works. Now, at the end of my videos for these factions, I like to discuss what is important to tell other players when you're playing this faction. I think if all of the players give too much detail about their faction, it can be confusing. Too little detail, and they won't really know what's going on when you're taking your turn. So I would recommend that during the first turn of your game, what you're going to do is you're going to explain a little bit about the underground nature. Obviously, there will be this burrow token near the board, so they're already going to be kind of curious. So you'll explain how the burrow works in terms of the tunnels and your movement to and from, and that no one else can go into the burrow except for you. That's important for everyone to know. And I would explain that your main goal is to try to influence these people by having cards in your hand match clearings where you have tokens. And when you influence them, you're going to get points. So that's the main reason you're trying to influence them. But also that each of these people are going to give you an additional action that you can take during your turn. You'll also want to explain, because that's going to become really powerful if you have all of these people. So not only would you want to explain how you influence these people and get points, but you do need to point out to the players that if you battle and they remove a building, that your most highest ranked person will come back here. You won't lose the point for it, but they will come back, so you won't have those actions available anymore. Otherwise, some players might think that this is crazy, that you're going to get these 9 extra actions per turn. Anyway, but that's what I would explain. Explain your underground movement, explain why you're trying to influence, and how other players can try to slow that down. I hope this video was helpful for you. I have one video for every faction currently available, so you could check the description in this video for other factions if you're interested in learning more. But yeah, I hope that helped. Thank you guys for watching. I will talk to you later. Goodbye.